The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. They had built great ships that could travel faster than light. They had colonies on distant worlds. They had met other species and traded with them in peace. For 200 years, humans believed they were safe in the galaxy. They were wrong. Commander Jack stood on the bridge of the starship Endurance. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the fleet for 30 years. He had seen battles and he had seen peace. But he had never seen anything like what appeared on his screen that morning. Red markers filled the tactical display. Each marker was an enemy ship. There were hundreds of them. They came out of nowhere, appearing at the edge of the solar system like ghosts. They had arrived. Lieutenant Kate ran to his side. She was young, only 28 years old, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had served under Jack for 3 years. He trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. "Sir, we have lost contact with the 7th Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "The 9th Fleet is gone too. The orbital stations around Mars are not responding." Jack felt his heart sink. 2 entire fleets destroyed in minutes. Thousands of good men and women dead before they could even fire a shot. They were fast, they were brutal, and they were ancient. Every spacefaring species knew about them. They had existed for 10,000 years. They had conquered over 200 species across the galaxy. Some of those species no longer existed. They did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They arrived, they conquered, and they moved on to the next world. Their ships were not made of metal like human vessels. They were alive, massive creatures of bone and flesh that swam through space like whales through water. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers, and each soldier was connected to the others through a psychic network. They moved as one mind, one purpose, one hunger. At the center of that network was the Queen. The Eternal, they called her. She had lived for 10,000 years, controlling her empire through thought alone. When she gave an order, billions obeyed without question. "Get me Admiral," Jack said quietly. The communication officer worked at his station. Static filled the speakers before a voice came through. Admiral sounded exhausted. She was 60 years old and had commanded the defense of Sol for a decade. Now she was watching that defense crumble. "We are pulling back to Luna," she said. "The President has ordered a full evacuation of Earth. All civilian transports are launching now. We need time." "How much time do we have?" Jack asked. "Days if we are lucky, hours if we are not." Jack looked around the bridge. His crew was watching him. Ensign Danny Parker sat at the weapons station. He was only 23 years old. He had joined the fleet to see the stars, not to die in a war. Navigator Amy Richardson was checking their course. She had a daughter back on Earth, a little girl named Sophie who was waiting for her mother to come home. They were all so young. They had their whole lives ahead of them, and now Jack had to ask them to throw those lives away. He walked to the center of the bridge and pressed the intercom button. His voice echoed through every corridor of the ship. "All hands, this is the commander. They have attacked our home. Earth is being evacuated as I speak. Millions of people are trying to escape on civilian transports. Those transports are slow and they have no weapons. If the enemy reaches them, everyone will die." He paused. The ship was silent. "The Endurance is going to buy them time. Every minute we fight is another transport that escapes. Every hour we survive is another 1,000 people who live. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not see tomorrow. But I want you to know that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve with each of you. Now let us show these aliens what humans are made of." He released the button. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Danny Parker turned to his weapons console and began charging the main guns. Amy Richardson plotted an intercept course. Kate took her position at the tactical station. No one ran, no one cried, no one asked to leave. Jack felt pride swell in his chest. These were his people. This was humanity. "Helm, take us toward the enemy fleet," he ordered. "Weapons, target their lead ships. Let us see if we can get their attention." The Endurance turned toward the wall of red markers on the screen. She was one ship against hundreds. Her chances were 0, but she flew forward anyway. The first cruiser locked onto them. It was enormous, 10 times the size of the Endurance, its organic hull pulsing with sickly green light. Tentacles extended from its body, reaching toward the human ship like fingers reaching for prey. "Fire," Jack said. The Endurance unleashed everything she had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The cruiser shuddered as explosions tore across its hull. It was not enough. The alien ship kept coming. "Evasive maneuvers," Kate shouted. The Endurance rolled hard to port. A beam of energy passed so close that the hull glowed red from the heat. Another cruiser was approaching from behind. They were surrounded. "Sir, we have lost Engine 3, Danny reported. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Jack gripped his chair as the ship shook. On the tactical display, he could see the civilian transports racing away from Earth. Some of them were going to make it. Some of them were going to live because of what the Endurance was doing right now. "Keep firing," he ordered. "Do not stop until there is nothing left to fire." The battle lasted 4 hours. The Endurance destroyed 3 enemy cruisers before her weapons went silent. She crippled 2 more before her engines failed. She rammed a 6th as her reactor went critical. When the explosion faded, the Endurance was gone. Commander Jack and most of his crew were dead. But in those 4 hours, 63 civilian transports had escaped. Over 2 million people survived because one ship refused to retreat. Kate was not among the dead. In the final moments, Jack had ordered her to take an escape pod. She had argued. She had begged to stay. But Jack had given her a direct order and she had obeyed. As her pod drifted through the debris field, Kate watched Earth burning below. They were landing now, their ships descending like locusts. Humanity's home was falling. But Kate was alive, and she would remember what Jack had done. She would remember that one ship could make a difference. She would remember that humans did not surrender. The war had begun, and it was far from over. 6 months had passed since the fall of Earth. They now controlled the entire planet. Their organic structures grew over the cities like mold on bread. The streets where children once played were now dark tunnels filled with alien soldiers. The sky that was once blue was now gray with ash and smoke. But humanity was not dead. In the mountains, in the deserts, in the deep caves beneath the ocean, survivors hid and waited. They had lost their home, but they had not lost their will to fight. Kate stood in an underground bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The bunker had been built centuries ago, during a war between human nations that no one remembered anymore. Now it served as the headquarters of the resistance. 2,000 people lived here, soldiers and scientists and families who had nowhere else to go. She was different now. The young lieutenant who had served on the Endurance was gone. In her place stood a woman with hard eyes and scars on her arms. She had fought in a dozen battles since the invasion. She had killed soldiers with her bare hands. She had watched friends die screaming in the dark. But she never forgot Jack. She never forgot what he had taught her about courage. Dr. Peters sat across the table from her. He was a thin man with glasses and messy brown hair. Before the war, he had been a scientist who studied alien languages. Now he studied the enemy. He spent his days listening to communications, trying to understand how they thought. "They have sent another message," said. He slid a tablet across the table. "Same as the last one, surrender or die." Kate did not bother reading it. "We are not going to surrender." "I know, but I thought you should see what else they said." She picked up the tablet. The message was translated from the language, which was more feeling than words. The aliens did not speak like humans. They shared emotions and images through their psychic network. Translating their communications was more art than science. The message was from the Queen herself. The Eternal was demanding that human leaders come forward. She wanted representatives from every continent. She wanted to show the galaxy that humanity had been broken like all the others before them. "She is planning a ceremony," explained. "A broadcast to every species in the galaxy. She wants us to kneel before her and admit defeat." "Who is she taking?" "Politicians, scientists, military officers," paused, and Jack. Kate felt her blood turn cold. "Jack is dead. He died on the Endurance." "He survived. They found him in the debris field 3 weeks after the battle. He has been a prisoner ever since." For a moment Kate could not speak. All these months she had believed Jack was gone. She had mourned him. She had sworn to honor his memory by continuing the fight. And now she learned that he was alive, trapped in some alien prison, waiting to be paraded before the galaxy like a trophy. She stood up so fast that her chair fell over. "Where is Colonel?" "In the command center." "Kate, wait. We cannot just attack them. The Queen is in New York. She has 1,000,000 soldiers protecting her. We do not have the numbers." "I do not care about numbers." Kate was already walking toward the door. "Jack never left anyone behind. I will not leave him." Colonel Sam was a big man with a shaved head and a thick beard. He had been a Marine before the war, a soldier who had fought in small conflicts on distant colonies. Now he led what remained of humanity's military forces. 200,000 soldiers scattered across the planet, hiding in shadows, striking when they could. He listened to Kate's request without expression. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "You want to raid the Queen's palace," he said slowly. "You want to rescue prisoners from the most heavily defended location on Earth. You want to do this with a team small enough to sneak past their sensors." "Yes. It is a suicide mission." "Probably." Sam looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, but it was real. "Jack pulled me out of a burning ship during the border war," he said. "I was 22 years old. I had a piece of metal in my leg and I could not walk. He carried me 2 kilometers to the extraction point. When I asked him why he risked his life for me, he said that humans do not leave each other behind." He stood up and walked to a map on the wall. It showed New York City, or what was left of it. They had transformed the island into something alien. Towers of flesh rose where skyscrapers once stood. Rivers of strange liquid flowed through streets that used to hold cars and people. "The Queen's chamber is here," Sam said, pointing to a spot in Central Park. "She keeps her prisoners in cocoons beneath the surface. Our scouts say there are about 100 humans down there." "How do we get in?" "That is the problem. The psychic network can detect fear. Any human who feels afraid near their soldiers will be discovered instantly. Their entire defense system is based on sensing our emotions." Had followed Kate into the command center. He stepped forward now, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I have been studying their network," he said. "It is not perfect. There are blind spots. If a human feels no fear, they become invisible to the sensors. They cannot imagine a creature that does not fear them, so their network ignores anyone who shows no terror." Kate nodded slowly. "So we need soldiers who are not afraid." "Not afraid of anything," confirmed. "Not afraid of death, not afraid of pain, not afraid of the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy." Sam laughed softly. "Where are we going to find soldiers like that?" Kate thought about the Endurance. She thought about Danny Parker charging the weapons while enemy ships surrounded them. She thought about Amy Richardson plotting a course into certain death. She thought about Jack standing on the bridge, calm and steady, ordering his crew to fight. "I know exactly where to find them," she said. "They are right here. They are survivors. They are humans." The next morning, Kate asked for volunteers. She told them the truth. The mission was dangerous. Most of them would probably die. They were going to walk into the heart of enemy territory with no backup and no escape plan. 12 people stepped forward. Corporal Ben was the first. He was a young man from Oklahoma, quiet and serious. He had lost his parents and his sister in the first wave of the invasion. He had nothing left to lose. Sergeant Grant was second. She was a medic who had saved dozens of lives in the underground bunker. She said she was tired of just saving people. She wanted to hurt the ones who had taken everything from her. 10 more followed, soldiers and civilians, men and women, old and young. They were scared, Kate could see it in their eyes, but they stepped forward anyway. That was what made them human. The mission would launch in 3 days. They would cross the wasteland that used to be America. They would enter the alien city. They would find Jack and the other prisoners. And they would bring them home. The journey to New York took 4 days. Kate led her team through the ruins of America, moving only at night when the patrols were less active. They traveled on foot because vehicles made too much noise. They ate cold food because fires could be seen from orbit. They slept in shifts, always with someone watching the sky. The land was dead. Towns that once held thousands of people were now empty shells. Fields that once grew crops were now covered in gray ash. Rivers that once ran clean were now thick with alien chemicals that glowed faint purple in the darkness. Sometimes they found survivors, a family hiding in a basement, a group of children living in an old school. Kate wanted to stop and help them, but she could not. The mission was too important. She gave them directions to the nearest resistance camp and kept moving. On the 3rd night, they reached the Hudson River. New York City rose on the other side like a nightmare made real. The familiar skyline was gone. In its place stood towers of living flesh, twisting toward the sky like fingers reaching for the stars. Lights pulsed inside the structures, red and green and colors that had no human name. "That is where we are going," Kate said quietly. Ben stood beside her. His face showed no expression. How do we get across? We swim. They do not patrol the water. They do not like it. Grant shook her head. The current is strong. We will lose equipment. Then we carry less equipment. Kate began stripping off her heavy pack. Weapons only. Leave everything else behind. They entered the water at midnight. The river was cold, but Kate barely felt it. She focused on her breathing, on her heartbeat, on keeping her emotions flat and empty. The psychic network was everywhere now. She could feel it pressing against her mind like a weight. If she let herself feel fear, even for a moment, the enemy would know. The swim took an hour. 2 of her team did not make it across. A man named Henry was pulled under by the current. A woman named Lisa simply vanished in the darkness. Kate did not stop to look for them. She could not. 10 soldiers climbed out of the water on the Manhattan shore. They were cold and tired and grieving for their lost friends. But they did not stop. The city was worse up close. The alien structures leaked fluid that smelled like rotting meat. Strange sounds echoed through the streets, clicks and hisses, and something that might have been screaming. Soldiers walked in groups of 3, their insect-like bodies moving with terrible speed. Kate led her team through the shadows, had given her a map of the psychic network's blind spots, places where the sensor coverage was weak. They moved from shadow to shadow, pausing whenever a patrol came close. Ben was the of all of them. He walked through the alien city like he was taking a stroll through a park. When a soldier passed within 3 meters of his position, he did not even blink. Kate whispered to him during a rest break, "How do you do it? How are you not afraid?" Ben looked at her with eyes that held nothing but emptiness. "I watched them eat my sister. She was 12 years old. She screamed for me to help her and I could not reach her in time." He paused. "After that, fear stopped making sense. What is the worst they can do to me? Kill me? I died the day she died. Everything since then is just borrowed time." Kate did not know what to say to that. She just nodded and kept moving. Central Park had become something unrecognizable. The trees were gone, replaced by towering growths that looked like giant mushrooms. The ground was soft and wet, pooling gently like the skin of a sleeping animal. The Queen's chamber was beneath the surface, accessed through a tunnel that had once been a subway entrance. 4 guards at the entrance, reported. We cannot sneak past them. Kate studied the guards. They were larger than normal soldiers, with extra limbs and armor plating over their bodies. Elite warriors, the Queen's personal protectors. "We do not sneak past them," Kate said. "We go through them." The attack was fast and brutal. Kate and Ben moved first, their knives finding gaps in the alien armor before the guards could react. And another soldier named finished the job, their weapons cutting through the creatures with practiced efficiency. One of the guards let out a shriek before it died. The sound echoed through the tunnel. "Move," Kate ordered. "They know we are here." They ran into the darkness. The tunnel twisted and turned, the walls alive with bioluminescent veins that cast everything in sickly green light. More guards appeared ahead of them. Kate did not slow down. She fired as she ran, her team following close behind. The prisoner chamber was vast. It stretched beneath Central Park like a cavern, filled with hundreds of cocoons that hung from the ceiling. Each cocoon contained a human, suspended in translucent gel, conscious but unable to move. Their eyes followed Kate as she entered the room. "Find," she commanded. Her team spread out, cutting cocoons open and helping prisoners to the ground. The humans inside were weak but alive. They had been kept in a state between sleep and waking, their bodies preserved for the Queen's ceremony. Found Jack near the back of the chamber. His cocoon was larger than the others, surrounded by wires that connected to the walls. They had been studying him, trying to understand how his mind worked. Kate cut him free herself. Jack fell into her arms, gasping for air as the gel drained from his lungs. "Kate," he whispered, his voice was raw and broken. "You should not have come." "Quiet, Commander. Save your strength." Jack shook his head weakly. "The Queen, she touched my mind. She knows about the resistance. She knows about the bunker. She knows everything." Kate felt cold fear creeping into her heart. She pushed it down. "Not now, not here." "Can you walk?" "I think so." She helped him to his feet. Around them, her team was freeing more prisoners. 63 humans in total, blinking in confusion as they were pulled from their cocoons. Then the alarms began. The sound was not like any alarm Kate had ever heard. It was a scream that came from the walls themselves, a psychic cry that echoed through the entire city. The network had detected them, not through fear, through something else. Had been wrong about the blind spots. They could not sense fear in Kate and her team, but they could sense hope. They could sense determination. They could sense the strange human emotion that made these creatures keep fighting when any sane species would surrender. And that emotion was lighting up their sensors like a fire in the darkness. "Run!" Kate shouted. They ran. The tunnels shifted around them, the living walls trying to trap them inside. Guards appeared from every direction. Kate fired until her weapon was empty, then drew her knife and kept fighting. 3 more of her team fell. Then another 2 took a blade through the chest and died without a sound. A young woman named was pulled into the walls and vanished screaming. 7 soldiers and 63 prisoners burst out of the tunnel into the night air. The city was waking up around them, alien creatures pouring from every structure. But Kate kept running. She had come to bring her people home. And she was not going to stop until she did. 7 soldiers and 63 prisoners made it back to the resistance bunker. Of the 12 who had volunteered for the mission, only 7 survived. Kate did not let herself think about the 5 who had died. There would be time for grief later. Right now, she had to focus on the living. Jack was carried to the medical bay on a stretcher. 6 months of captivity had left him thin and weak. His hair had turned completely white. His hands shook when he tried to lift them, but his eyes were still sharp. His mind was still working. Dr. Peters examined him while Kate stood watch at the door. The bunker was on high alert now. They knew about them. It was only a matter of time before they attacked. "His body will recover," said quietly. They kept him healthy. They wanted him alive for the ceremony, but his mind is different. The Queen touched him. She was inside his thoughts for weeks. "Is he compromised?" Kate asked. The question hurt to say, but she had to know. Jack answered before could speak. "No, I kept her out of the important things." He sat up slowly, wincing from the effort. "She tried to break me. She searched my memories for information about the resistance. She wanted to know where the bunkers were. She wanted to know how many soldiers we had." "What did she find?" A thin smile crossed Jack's face. "My daughter's 5th birthday party, the smell of chocolate cake, the sound of children laughing. I focused on that memory every time she entered my mind. I gave her nothing else." Kate felt something warm in her chest. Even after everything, even after months of torture, Jack was still the man she remembered. "She was confused," Jack continued. "She did not understand why I would waste my energy on such a useless memory. She called me defective. She said humans were broken creatures who did not understand survival." "She was wrong," Kate said. "She was wrong about a lot of things." Jack's eyes grew distant. "But she was also right about some things. The psychic network is powerful. Every soldier in the galaxy is connected to her mind. She gives them orders and they obey without question. They have no fear because she does not let them feel it. They have no doubt because she removes it." He looked at Kate directly. "But there is a weakness. The network flows through her. She is the center of everything. If we could disrupt that connection, even for a moment, her army would fall apart. Billions of soldiers would suddenly have to think for themselves for the first time in their lives." Colonel Sam had entered the room while Jack was speaking. He crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. "How do we disrupt a psychic network? We do not have that kind of technology." "We do not need technology." Jack's voice was calm and steady. "The network is designed to filter out threats. It detects fear and uses that fear to locate enemies. But it cannot understand other emotions. Love, hope, defiance, joy. These things make no sense to they see them as weaknesses." Eyes widened behind his glasses. "You are saying we can use our emotions as a weapon." "I am saying I can use my emotions as a weapon." Jack sat up. "During my captivity, I learned how the network functions. The Queen connects to prisoners directly, reading their thoughts and feelings. If someone was close enough to her, and if that person projected overwhelming emotional interference, the network would overload." The room was silent. Kate understood what Jack was suggesting. She did not want to believe it. "You want to surrender yourself again," she said quietly. "You want to go back to her." "Yes. She will kill you. Eventually. But first she will bring me before her. She will want to show the galaxy that she broke me. And when she connects to my mind, I will give her everything. Every good memory I have ever had. Every moment of joy and love and hope. every feeling that makes humans who we are. Sam shook his head. Even if this works, even if you can disrupt the network, it will only last a few seconds. Then she will kill you and reconnect with her army. A few seconds might be enough. Jack looked at Kate. During my captivity, I saw her guard patterns. I know where her soldiers are positioned. If the resistance attacks at the exact moment the network fails, we could break through their lines. We could reach her. And then what? And then we kill her. Jack's voice held no emotion. They have never been without a queen. Their entire species revolves around her. If she dies, the hive dies with her. Kate wanted to argue. She wanted to find another way. But she knew there was no other way. They were outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. Their bunker would be discovered within days. The only chance they had was to strike first, to hit the enemy so hard and so fast that they could not recover. "How do we amplify your signal?" asked. His scientific mind was already working on the problem. "Your natural emotional output would not be strong enough to affect the entire network." Jack nodded. "I was hoping you could help with that." Worked through the night. He built a device that looked like a simple metal disc, small enough to be hidden under the skin. The device would read Jack's neural patterns and amplify them 1,000 times. When activated, it would broadcast his emotions through the Queen's own network, using her power against her. There was one problem. The amplification process was too strong for a human body to handle. Once activated, the device would burn out Jack's nervous system within minutes. He would feel everything 100 times more intensely than normal. The joy would be overwhelming. The love would be crippling. The pain would be beyond description. And at the end, he would die. Kate found Jack alone in the observation room, looking at a map of Earth on the wall. The planet was covered in red markers showing positions. So many enemies, so few friends. "There has to be another way," she said. Jack did not turn around. "I have been a soldier for 30 years. I always knew I would die in battle. This is not so different." "It is completely different. You are sacrificing yourself for a plan that might not even work." "Every plan might not work. That is what plans are." He finally turned to face her. "Kate, when I ordered you to leave the Endurance, I was not just saving your life. I was giving you a mission. Someone had to survive. Someone had to keep fighting. Someone had to remember what we were fighting for." Kate felt tears burning in her eyes. She pushed them back. "You remembered," Jack said softly. "You built a resistance. You rescued me from that prison. You gave humanity a chance. Now I am asking you to keep going. Win this war. Build something new. Make sure that everything we sacrificed was worth it." "How am I supposed to do that without you?" Jack smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine, the kind she remembered from before the war. "The same way you have been doing it all along, one step at a time, one day at a time, one fight at a time." He put his hand on her shoulder. "You are ready, Kate. You have been ready for a long time. You just did not know it yet." The surgery to implant the device took 2 hours. When it was done, Jack looked exactly the same as before. But everyone knew that he was carrying a bomb inside his skull. A bomb made of love and hope and everything good that humans had ever felt. Tomorrow, he would use that bomb to save the world. The throne room of Queen was a cathedral made of living flesh. It stretched hundreds of meters in every direction, the ceiling so high that it disappeared into shadow. Walls pulsed with a slow heartbeat. Veins of light crawled through the organic structure like rivers of fire. The air was thick and warm and smelled of something ancient. Thousands of warriors lined the walls. They stood motionless, their compound eyes reflecting the dim light. Their bodies were covered in natural armor, spines and blades that grew from their flesh like thorns on a rose. They did not breathe. They did not blink. They simply waited for their queen to give them an order. Jack walked between them with his hands bound. He wore simple clothes, torn and dirty. He had no weapons. He had no armor. He was just a man, old and tired, walking toward his death. But he walked with his head held high. Queen watched him approach from her throne. She was enormous, her segmented body coiled upon a platform of bone and chitin. 6 arms extended from her torso, each one capable of crushing a human like an insect. Her head was crowned with a ring of eyes that saw in every direction at once. She had lived for 10,000 years. She had conquered 200 species. She was the most powerful creature in the galaxy. And she was curious about this small, weak human who had her. "You are the one who resisted," she said. Her voice did not come from her mouth. It echoed directly inside Jack's mind, cold and vast like the space between stars. The one who showed me memories of cake and laughter while I searched your thoughts. I still do not understand why you did that." Jack said nothing. He focused on his breathing, on the device hidden beneath his skin, on the faces of everyone he had ever loved. "Your species is strange," the Queen continued. "You fight when you cannot win. You die for creatures who are not your offspring. You waste energy on art and music and stories that serve no purpose. I have studied you for many of your months and I still cannot explain this behavior." She leaned forward, her massive body shifting on the throne. "I have conquered many species. All of them begged for mercy when they realized they could not defeat me. All of them surrendered when they understood that resistance was pointless. But your kind keeps fighting. Why?" Jack looked up at her. His voice was quiet but steady. "Because you have never given us a reason to stop. I have destroyed your fleets. I have taken your planet. I have killed millions of your people. How is that not a reason? Those are reasons to be afraid. They are not reasons to stop fighting." The Queen made a sound that might have been laughter. It rippled through the psychic network and was felt by billions of across the planet. "You are afraid. I can sense it. Buried deep beneath your surface calm, there is terror. You know you are going to die." "Yes," Jack admitted. "I'm afraid, but I am here anyway." For the first time, something flickered in the Queen's ancient eyes. Confusion, perhaps, or the first hint of unease. "That makes no sense," she said. "Fear exists to prevent creatures from taking dangerous actions. If you feel fear and act anyway, you are broken. Your survival instincts are defective." Jack smiled. It was a thin smile, tired and sad, but it was real. "No, we just have something stronger than fear." He activated the device. The effect was instantaneous. Every emotion Jack had ever felt exploded outward through the Queen's own network. She had opened a connection to his mind, expecting to find weakness and terror. Instead, she found a flood of feelings that her ancient brain could not process. She felt a father holding his newborn daughter for the first time, the weight of that tiny body, the promise to protect her from everything that might ever hurt her. She felt a boy sitting by his grandmother's bed as she took her last breath, understanding for the first time that death was real and permanent, and coming for everyone he loved. She felt soldiers laughing around a campfire after a battle, telling jokes and sharing food, finding joy in the simple fact that they were still alive. She felt first love, awkward and terrifying and wonderful. She felt heartbreak, sharp and deep like a knife in the chest. She felt pride in a job well done. She felt shame over mistakes that could never be undone. She felt loneliness and belonging and excitement and boredom and all the small emotions that made up a human life. She felt hope, not the weak hope of a creature who believed things would get better, but the fierce, burning hope of beings who knew things might never get better and chose to believe anyway. She felt defiance, the stubborn refusal to surrender even when surrender was the logical choice, the irrational decision to keep fighting because giving up was simply not acceptable. She felt what it meant to be mortal, to know that death was coming and to stand firm anyway, to say no to the darkness even when the darkness was certain to win. The Queen screamed. The sound tore through the throne room like a hurricane. Warriors who had stood motionless for centuries fell to their knees, clutching their heads. The psychic network that connected billions of convulsed and shattered. Suddenly, creatures who had never had an independent thought in their lives were alone in their own minds. They did not know what to do. They did not know how to think without the Queen telling them. They stumbled and crashed into each other, screaming in confusion and fear. Across the planet, the same thing was happening. The unified army became a million frightened individuals. Supply lines collapsed. Attack formations scattered. Soldiers who had been advancing on human positions stopped and looked around in bewilderment. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Colonel Sam watched his tactical display with disbelief. "The network is down. All units advance. This is our only chance." Kate led the assault from the eastern front. Ben attacked from the west. Grant pushed from the south. Humans poured out of hiding places across the globe. They had been waiting for this moment. They had been preparing for months. Now they struck. In the throne room, Jack stood at the center of a storm. The device was burning through his nervous system. His body was failing. His heart was slowing, but he was still standing. The Queen looked down at him. For the first time in 10,000 years, she felt something she did not recognize. It took her a moment to understand what it was. Fear. She was afraid of this dying man, not because he could hurt her, Not because he was powerful. She was afraid because she finally understood something terrible. She could never defeat his species. She could kill them by the billions. She could burn their worlds to ash. She could hunt them to the edges of the galaxy. But they would keep coming. They would keep fighting. They would keep hopping and loving and defying her until the last one of them was dead. And even then, their memory would survive. Other species would hear about the humans. They would learn that resistance was possible. They would start to hope. She was afraid because Jack was dying and he was smiling. The war was not won in that moment. It took 3 more years of brutal fighting before the last ship fled the solar system. Millions more humans died. New heroes rose and fell. But historians would later agree that the tide turned in that throne room when one man walked forward and made a god flinch. Kate was there when the queen finally fell. She drove the blade into the creature's heart herself, avenging everyone who had died since the invasion began. As the queen's body collapsed, Kate thought of Jack. She thought of the endurance. She thought of all the people who had stepped forward when stepping forward meant certain death. 50 years later, human ships patrolled the borders of what had once been space. The Empire had shattered after the Queen's death. 100 factions fought each other for control, while humanity rebuilt and grew stronger. At the Academy, young cadets learned the history of the Contact War. Every year, on the anniversary of Jack's sacrifice, they gathered beneath a statue of a man stepping forward with his head held high. And they recited the words that every human child now learned before they could walk. When the darkness comes, step forward. When fear surrounds you, step forward. When all hope is lost, step forward, because that is what it means to be human. We step forward. In the cold reaches of space, on distant worlds where alien species whispered stories of the war that shook the galaxy, one phrase had entered every language. The humans keep coming. And even the queens are afraid.